My name is Davon Stovall. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am 29 years old, and at the Wings of Life, I serve as the outreach coordinator. My childhood was just myself and my mother. You know, my dad was never really in the picture. He would come around and he would just drop off money. He was a drug dealer. He wasn't consistent in my life at all. At the age of 12, I got my gallbladder removed, and I'll never forget it. It was my first time being introduced to oxycodone. Once being on oxycodone, I began to take it to just cope with, everyday life. My mother was gone, always working, and my father was never in my life, so I was lonely. It was just a great coping mechanism that I just used drugs and as for my health as a cover-up. In my early 20s, I had my kidney removed, and that's when I got introduced to fentanyl. Once I had stopped getting it prescribed from a doctor, I eventually went to heroin to find it on the streets. It was cheap and more readily available. At that time, I was also in school for physical therapy, and I was minoring in psych. And due to my drug addiction, I was no longer able to finish school, so I had to drop out. And then that's when things took a turn for its worse. I overdosed June of 2019. What it was I was shooting heroin and my arms got infected, so I had to go to the hospital to receive treatment. And during that process, I shared a room with someone else who spoke Spanish, and I am somewhat fluent in Spanish, and I overheard him on the phone telling someone to bring him in some fentanyl. I convinced him to give me some. Since I was already hooked up to an IV unit, I took those drugs and I shot it directly in my IV, and I instantly overdosed. I remember two nurses coming in the room, waking me up and hitting me with Narcan. They were injecting Narcan intravenously to wake me up, and I remember very vaguely one of the nurses saying, "I've never in my life given someone that much Narcan." And I also remember her saying, "You know what, he's done. That's enough, he's gone." But one of the nurses said, "Let's try it one more time." During that time, the nurse gave it to me one more time, and I just remember taking a deep breath, and I just exhaled, and I came back to. And that's when I heard God's voice saying, "Now will you listen to me?" I wasn't able to breathe on my own, so they did put me in medical-induced coma, and when I came out of that, the first person that I wanted to talk to was my mother. My mother at this time had moved to Texas, and once she had moved to Texas, she said that she had a place for me if I was ready to not only get healed physically, but spiritually as well. And that's when the Wings of Life was introduced to me. I was very skeptical at first because, it was my first rehab, and I was scared, and having to move 17 hours away from Pennsylvania, at such a young age is scary for anyone. I arrived here June 6th of 2019. It did take me 2 hours to come out of the truck that my uncle had brought me from, out of Virginia. And I was lost, I was confused, I was hurt. I felt like they were just gonna abandon me, that they were just trying to get rid of me. I couldn't see it then, but I can see it now, and I had to trust the process. I've grown so much by being here at the Wings of Life. I got a chance to mature physically and spiritually as well. I've been able to get discipled by true men of God who's been able to walk this thing out in recovery as well. And I also gained a lot of father figures here, something that I missed out, growing up in my life. These men truly care about your well-being. They want to see you grow. They want to see you succeed. And they're very intentional about what they do here. It's great, this place definitely helps, like the sign says, it not only transfers lives, but also it restores damaged lives. My life was once damaged, but staying here, I definitely was redeemed, and through my family, I have a great relationship with each and every one. They trust me. It's funny now because they now call me for advice. And just to give me that respect and that authority and that honor to speak into their lives now, it means the world to me. Because before they would just write me off, thinking I didn't know what I was talking about. I was a liar. I was manipulative. Like I always felt like I always felt like they thought I was always trying to get something from them. And now it's like, well, what can I give you in return? If I never came to the Wings of Life, sir, I would not be here. I would be dead. I know without a shadow of my doubt in my mind, I would not be sitting before you being able to testify and give you this interview. I'm so blessed and thankful for the Wings of Life, and that's the reason why I'm a huge advocate for the Wings of Life, because I want to be able to help those other people that were in my situation, in my predicament, before it leads them to overdose and they no longer have a story to tell.